This is What Does the Bible Say? We are live on Channel 18, and if you were here earlier, you've definitely got to see plenty of action. I hope that you stay with us and continue to monitor what's going on with our local area, because we are definitely a part of the local excitement. And what I mean by that is this is what's coming up for us. We are actually in our tent time, and so we're getting ready for our June 21st tent meeting. And right now we're debating still. We have a spot, but we haven't decided which one we're going to use or where we're going to actually be. We have one that we know that we can have, but we're looking for a little bit of different area. So this is one of the old spots that we've used in Martinsville and in the city. This is actually a church, and right at the corner of Church and Fayette Street. We've been there probably 5 or 6 times. It's a very good location, and as it goes right now, we are doing really well. I'll talk more about that as we go along. One of the things that major things that I want to talk about tonight is the state of the churches. I don't know if you realize really what's going on. If you're paying attention to the landscape, take a look at this. Let me do a little housekeeping here. As far as the volume is concerned on this, let's see. I don't know, you might want to check the volume back there. Let me try to turn mine all the way up, and for some reason, let's see, my volume wants to be muted for some reason. I don't know why. Okay, when we plugged in the HDMI, for some reason, it killed my volume. There it goes. Let's see. All right. How about that? Did that change something? All right, let me try this again. I'm not either. Okay, let me try another one then. Okay, just give me a second here. Some of these, I have them saved at another place outside my PowerPoint, so I can try that. Okay, let's try this. So you should be getting it. I can't get it because I'm on HDMI. John, do you know any reason why he might not be getting audio back there? When they plug my HDMI in,
this series that we're about to start is not meant to be
you are getting it. Turn it up a little bit so I can hear it.
A belittling or anything condescending or negative. Title or the thumbnail of this video. You saw the title or the thumbnail of this video, and that's why you clicked on, because you're.
Okay, folks. We had a little bit of technical problems there, and this is what I wanted. You see what this guy's saying? He's saying he is actually the pastor, and he is saying that they are leaving. What are we talking about? We're actually talking about the state of churches. That's a United Methodist Church. The entire congregation actually is leaving. And so that's what we're queuing up tonight to begin our discussion with. Let's see if it plays out of my computer this way.
You saw the title or the thumbnail of this video, and that's why you clicked on, because you're curious about an entire congregation leaving the United Methodist Church. I'm going to tell you the whole story. In fact, we're going to do this as a series, which is probably going to take a few weeks. And
so what do you think about that? folks. You've got a pastor that is basically saying the entire Methodist congregation is leaving.
Or the thumbnail of this video.
Sorry, but that's a long bye. And that's what we're talking about tonight, is we're talking about these individuals in the different religious groups. They came into 2020. What can you say about the beginning of 2020? We came roaring into the 20s. Does that sound familiar? 1920s. That was a very, very turbulent time. 1920s, they call it the Roaring 20s. And what happened as the Roaring 20s roared out? The Great Depression. So you have the churches going into the 20s. Donald Trump was president. Things were, and I'm not saying this from political, things were rolling. I mean, the economy was booming. Unemployment was down. Everything was looking very rosy. And then all of a sudden, we basically started all kinds of different things in early February. We started a broadcast where we are running a daily school. Charles actually started up Insomniac Theater in the last segment of the year. And, here we are, and we're in 2021, and it is just, things are just crawling. And people absolutely know that we are not coming out of this anytime soon from the standpoint of the decimation of the economy, the decimation of people's confidence. Everybody is just, they're saying, we have started up and stopped, started up and stopped, started up and stopped, and I could just keep that up depending on what business you happen to be in. And they're just basically saying at this time, we're not starting up until we see everybody else starting up. Well, everybody else is standing around saying we're not starting up until we see everybody else starting up. So you've got everybody stalled, and that's just where we are. We're at a standoff. And it doesn't mean that we're standing off in the sense that we're mad with each other or anything like that. It's just simply that people do not know what the next step is. What are the basically saying, this is a good time to exit. We weren't liking what was going on in this particular video. The United Methodists were not liking what is going on. Have you seen the United Methodists lately, like some of the changes that are taking place? They're massive. I live in a country area over in Pennsylvania County. You got two different services. You have the contemporary services. That's the young people that want all kinds of different music. And then you got the traditional. That's the older people who do not care anything about punk rock and all kinds of different instruments of music and all of the stuff that kids want to play around with and experiment. They don't want any part of that. And that's not just the United Methodist Church. That's going on in the entire sectarian world out there. You've got folks, really, this is the first time ever that you've had like 3 different generations working at the same time in the same place. Just take the city, for instance. Do you realize that you have, I don't even know how to name all these people. You got baby boomers, you have Generation X, there's another one in there that I don't know what they are, and then you have the millennials. And they're all in the same complex. Do you know how far it is from a baby boomer to a millennial? They don't even speak the same language. And then you talk about the gender issues that's associated with that, and you've got all of these people together in one facility. That would be the city and several different companies. It's a very strenuous time, and it's a time because people live longer right now. You got people that are living to be 90 on a regular basis. It is nothing to live to 90 years old anymore. And be in good health. I've got a friend in Florida that's in his 90s, and he was basically playing golf 3 or 4 times a week. So how is that possible? There's a guy who lived here in Martinsville in Henry County that was in his 90s when he died. He was playing golf 2 or 3 times a week. His name was Reuben. So you got all of that going on, and then you try to put them all in church together. What do you think? It is not going to happen. And especially given the fact that there are many, many what we would call taboos that have been broken, things that the older generation would never, ever say that they were going to put up with and never even dreamed it was going to happen. And then basically it starts happening. And for instance, one of the reasons that the United Methodist Church has made it as well as they have is because they were one of the first groups to decide that they were going to be pro-homosexual. Basically, what that meant is everybody had somebody who was a homosexual in their family, and that somebody was shunned at first, and then they basically opened the doors and said the United Methodist Church is going to be open for everybody. I think the Disciples of Christ denomination has done that early on as well. Well, what happened when they did that? Can I tell you something? People in the homosexual community often, by and large, have money. Why? It's because they don't spend money the same way heterosexual individuals do. What does that mean? Well, okay, I'm a man and I know how women act. I know what women do. They want things, and in order to keep them happy and keep yourself happy because they're happy, that you spend. It's just a cycle that basically continues, okay? Men, they're big boys and they just like toys. And so the wife basically lets the men spend because that's how they are. Big boys like big toys. And so they let them spend. A whole lot of spending going on in heterosexual relationship. In a homosexual relationship, it's not like that. You got two men, both of them are pretty much the same. It isn't the same with homosexual men as normal heterosexual men necessarily. They don't spend all of their time with their big toys. They basically have other objectives, which is a lot of work, a lot of different things, and I'm not trying to make them look better or worse. We're just talking here. Same thing with homosexual women. They don't have that, honey, I must have this, honey, I must have that. They're both women. There's not that emotional game playing that goes on in a heterosexual relationship. So what does all that mean? It means they got money. Methodist Church, welcome back in. All of a sudden the Methodist Church got an influx of money and help. So see where we are, but that did not solve things. Look at this. 2020 came along, and all of that, all of the plans, all of the money that had been brought in any of these different groups, what were the other groups doing, like the Baptists? Well, the Baptists were busy changing their name and trying to change their identity. Baptists have had such a bad reputation. If you're a Baptist, I'm not beating on you or bashing you tonight. I'm just saying, Baptists have their own special reputation. You got the Southern Baptists. There are a lot of hillbilly type, and I'm not talking about everywhere. There's plenty of city Baptists that don't do this, but there are plenty of country Southern Baptists, and they have definitely got a reputation of being Southern Baptists. The reason they're Southern Baptists is because they actually were opposed to the release of slaves in the Civil War times, and a lot of the Southern Baptists want to shed that name. They want to shed Southern Baptists, but they can't get it done. So what have they done? A lot of them have just totally shed Baptists altogether. So you see what we're doing? We're basically looking at the playground, what we're dealing with. And so what is happening? Well, we're appealing to individuals who are in this precarious situation. What does that mean, that we're appealing to them? Well, what is appealing? Well, what is appealing today is something that is akin to normal. I know how that sounds. Akin to normal. Have you taken a trip lately? There is nothing that you can do that's going to be normal. Everything you plan, as you plan it based upon what you used to think things were going to be like. I had to go to South Carolina to order a new tent top for our tent. So it's North Myrtle Beach. And so what do you think? When you think about North Myrtle Beach, I don't go to the beach, but you do. When you think about North Myrtle Beach in the summertime, basically you know what's going on. I think about Myrtle Beach in the fall and wintertime when nobody's there. But I can tell you this, it doesn't matter which time you think about it. You go to Myrtle Beach and it ain't like it was. So I didn't even go to Myrtle Beach. I had an appointment. I just went over to Charleston, close to that area, got a hotel and drove back past Myrtle Beach to get my tent. Why? Because nothing is normal. You can't plan on anything being the way it used to be. Now, here's what I said. We actually have an appeal to people today because we actually do represent something that is normal. Look at this Bible that I have. You know what it is? It's a King James Version. Most likely, your grandmother and your grandfather used the King James. And if they ever taught you or read to you, or you ever went to church with them as a child, you were hearing from the King James. You might not like thee and thou, But one thing is for sure, it is normal. It actually brings you back to a time frame which they would describe as nostalgia. Nostalgia basically means back home, things that are familiar. And so when you start hearing, or when you're hearing us and you see me, look, I've got this Bible program up. What is it? It's the King James Bible. And what we do is we're saying, you know what? We should be going back to the Bible. Instead of trying to come up with some new church name that is, really in vogue, like New Beginnings. Are you kidding? Do you realize how worn out that phrase is, New Beginnings? Every time somebody splits, they call themselves New Beginnings, New Start, something like that. And so I'm saying all of these individuals are now exiting because nothing is like it was. You left church, now you're back, if you are back. And all the last year, things were changing and different people were changing. Leadership was changing. And now when you come back, everybody's like, what's going on here? That's not the way it was. Things are different here. And so what do? This is a good time to quit. Well, look at this. Here's what's going on in our world. Let me see if I can get this up real quick. Yes, sir.
I felt like I needed to call in.
All right.
First of all, I want to thank you for sending out prayers for my wife. I am the former independent Baptist preacher that you have spoke about a few times on the broadcast. And I mean it that there was a time, Johnny, that I was in great misery. And you, Caleb, what the Bible says, helped me tremendously to be able to exit that misery. And I just want to thank you from the depths of my heart. From May the 6th, I obeyed the gospel. And I was able to exit an exodus, that misery in my life. And I want to thank you for that.
Yes, sir.
An exodus, that misery in my life. And I want to thank you for that. And Johnny, I thought about Proverbs 17:17. A friend loveth at all times. A brother is born for adversity. And I thought of you. I thought of Joseph, the adversity that his family would go through, and the adversity that many would go through. And he was there for that time, just as you were there for me. And you've been there since May as a friend and a brother. And I want to thank you for that, Johnny. And I ask you to continue to keep your prayers going for my wife. We just want to say we appreciate the broadcast tonight.
Okay, thank you very much for calling in and making it real, brother. Appreciate you very much, very much.
Yes, sir.
Okay.
Thank you.
All right, good night. Okay, folks. That's what we're talking about. That was a independent fundamental Baptist pastor, formerly, that called in to basically remind everybody that in the early summer of 2020, he made the decision as a result of watching our broadcast and also, doing his own study, watching our broadcast, he made the decision to come out of the Independent Fundamental Baptist Church. And he called me, or he texted me, I believe, back in May. I can't remember how that went. This is October is when this call came in. And he's basically saying, you know what? I can see that I was needing to make a change. And he was saying he was trying to exit us out of a horrendous situation. And we assisted him. Now, folks, if you're trying to figure out where you need to be, you are in the right place right now. I'm saying what we're doing on What Does the Bible Say is we're giving people an opportunity that they won't get anywhere else. And that is to go back to the Bible, have everything that is said presented to you from a biblical perspective, and show you the Bible verses. And so one of the things that we're definitely trying to do is we're trying to be Christ-like. Look at what I have right here on the screen. If there be any consolation in Christ, any comfort of love, any fellowship of the Spirit, if any bowels of mercy. You know what bowels of mercy is? Some people that also learned the truth on our YouTube, came from Maryland this past week, and they spent the weekend with Caleb. And while they were here, they went kayaking and canoeing, and I could see that one of the ladies did not have water shoes on, and I thought, if they turn over in Smith River and wearing flip-flops, and those flip-flops come off and their feet hit the bottom of, her feet hits the bottom of the Smith River, this is what happened. As soon as I had that thought, I just had this gut feeling. Oftentimes they call it a gut feeling. Now, some people use that term when they're talking about seeing into the future. I just had a gut feeling something's going to happen. But other people use that when it's like, my gut just kind of cringed. That's bowels of mercy. That's what the Bible is talking about when it talks about bowels of mercy. You feel it deep within, the pain or the concern. And as soon as I went and picked them up at the end of their journey on Smith River, and that's the first thing I said, did y'all turn over and did you hit the bottom of the river without shoes on? And the answer was yes. And that same feeling hit me right, in my gut. And it was like, I just couldn't imagine their feet being cut. And that's what it's talking about here. If there be any consolation in Christ, any comfort of love, any fellowship of spirit, if any bowels of mercy, these are all terms that are extremely needful when you're talking about relationships and getting through this life. Fulfill you my joy, that you be like-minded, have the same love, being one accord and one mind, letting nothing be done through strife or vainglory, but in lowliness of mind, and let each esteem other better than themselves. Look not every man to his own things, but every man also to the things of others. Let this mind be in you, which was also in Christ Jesus. Look at this. Here is deity that leaves the place of deity, who being in the form of God thought it not robbery to be equal with God, but made himself of no reputation, and took upon him the form of a servant, and was made in the likeness of men. And being found in fashion as a man, he humbled himself and became obedient unto death, even the death of the cross. Now, tonight, y'all, what we do on What Does the Bible Say is we go to the farthest limits that we know how, in order to get you the absolute naked truth, pure, unadulterated truth. It causes us all kinds of difficulty. It causes us all kinds of unhappiness and hardship. And like Caleb is sick, he's out all the time working. We're producing 50 hours of television every month, pressing ourselves as hard as we know how. Why? Because we know the state of things, and we know that you folk are trying to exodus yourself out of this awful period. And what do you need? You need comfort. You need something that is consolation. You need something that is like a normality. What could be more normal than a book that has lasted for 2,000 years? The New Testament is basically 2,000 years old. The King James has been known since 1611. And if I bring things up and show it to you in the Bible, then you absolutely should be able to trust that it is the truth. Now then, you have the difficult problem of trying to figure out, well, which truth is it? Well, let me show you a little bit more about what's going on in regard to other areas. This is Paris, Tennessee. Now, the Baptist pastor, former Baptist pastor's name is Robert Taylor. He came to our tent last year, introduced himself to us. He was on the broadcast there in October, and our tent meeting was in June. It was great to meet he and his wife. And so then here is tonight. This is Paris, Tennessee. This was yesterday's paper, I believe, front page of the Post-Intelligencer, Paris, Tennessee. And what do you have? Robert Taylor, former denominational preacher, will speak about his conversion to the Church of Christ, Eastwood Church of Christ, 800 East Wood Street in Paris, Tennessee. Now, you see what's going on here? Why am I doing that? That is showing you the appeal. Not only is it happening here, but in Paris, Tennessee, the individuals in Paris, Tennessee are being introduced to the idea that this former Baptist pastor is actually preaching in an assembly of the Church of Christ tonight. Now, I didn't do this earlier, but I'm going to have a look right quick just to satisfy myself. I have the website for that particular congregation, and if it is the case, and it often is the case, they put up just about everything that they do that is of note. And so I'm going to have a look right quick at my Facebook Messenger and just see if I actually have that. Let's see. Here's the website for the Paris Church of Christ, Eastwood Church of Christ. And here's their YouTube. Let's go to their YouTube and see what happened tonight. I don't know if they had anything live tonight. I don't know if they decided to hold it back because it was actually it was an event that they might not be sure of what was going to happen. That looks like what maybe took place. And what I mean by that is if you have, I'm saying this is a big deal for the Church of Christ in Paris, Tennessee, to have a former pastor of a denomination in their pulpit. I'm saying churches of Christ have not been militant and have not been participating in anything of this nature in a long time. I guarantee there are some very nervous people in that assembly. And then it could be the case that he mentioned his association with us, and I don't even know if the Church of Christ in Paris, Tennessee even likes us, because there are a lot of churches of Christ who have quit being the one true church. They don't want to say that anymore. They want to change their identity, just like many Baptists want to change their identity. They want to actually renew their positioning in front of people. That old, we know how the Church of Christ, people will say, we know how the Church of Christ is. Well, what are we going to do about that? Well, let's change our reputation. Let's change how we do things. No. You see what you're doing? You're making yourself unappealing when you do that. People don't know where you are. They don't know what to actually think. And, really, when you have somebody that's hiding their identity, that's really disrespectful to individuals when they think they're buying one thing or getting into one thing, and then they find out, you know what, you guys hid a bunch of stuff. What is it? Oh, y'all believe that y'all are the one true church. Well, what are we supposed to do? You're supposed to tell that stuff up front. Well, you wouldn't have come. How do you know? You see, you're testing people's honesty right there. And when you say, well, if we had told you that we were the one true church and that all this business that is going on about people bunching up under names, different names, and, allowing division to propagate itself, you're actually saying that we're okay with that. 1 Corinthians chapter 1, verse 12, Paul said, now this I say, every one of you saith, I'm of Paul, I'm of Apollos, and I'm of Cephas, and I'm of Christ. Is Christ divided? Y'all say yes. We say no. Paul saying no. This is something y'all shouldn't be doing. He said, I'm saying, brethren, by the name of the Lord Jesus Christ, that you all speak the same thing, to be no divisions among you. Well, y'all are all about a division. And so you come to the Church of Christ, and they hide their identity. They hide the marks that make them different. And then you find out, and it's like, hey, you should have put this out front so that we would have known this coming in. And if we had known this, there's a lot of people that say, if we had known this earlier, we would have had a look at y'all, because who in the world has the nerve to be able to say that there's only one true church? Well, guess what? It would be the people that have it in the Bible. And so that's what is appealing about us. And so the bio from the Wood Street Church of Christ says that Robert Taylor of Greenville, Tennessee, an independent fundamental Baptist preacher for more than 22 years, studied the Bible until he realized what he was preaching didn't match what he was reading in the Bible. He began looking for Christians who matched the first century Christians of the New Testament, and he found the churches of Christ. He and his entire congregation, located near Greenville, Tennessee, left the Baptist denomination and are now the Highway 107 Church of Christ near Greenville. What do you think about that? I think that that's what you ought to investigate. Here it is, 2021. Everything that you do is abnormal. There is nothing that is really comfortable. When you go to your favorite restaurant, you don't know if everything's going to be the same. It's likely they don't have the supplies they used to have. There's just a whole lot of different things going on. It's possible that people are acting and behaving on the inside differently than they used to. And so you're still trying to find and feel your way. Why don't you do this? Why don't you basically come to a place that has been the same for 21 years? I believe we've been having tents for 21 years, 1998. That'd be 22 years. This would probably be maybe our 23rd year of having tent meetings in Martinsville and Henry County and the two-state area. There's probably people that are watching that you have been either by our tent, in our tent, watched our tent on television multiple times and seen the different array of speakers that we've brought in from all over the United States for individuals to listen to sermons that have to do with the church that you read about in the Bible. I mean, there's so many people that know about the Church of Christ, and you know about the things that we say and we do. And here you look, and I've had this tent up since, let me just think here a minute, since 1999, this same tent. And the tent that I had before 1999 was one that basically looked just like this, except it had blue stripes where the seams are. And the one that I'll be using this year will look just like this one, except it will have green stripes where the seams are. Same green outside that circles the tent. It'll be the same green and white, except it will have green stripes where these seams are. Now, the chairs, everything in there is going to be the same. You're telling me that there's something that has been unchanged for that amount of time? That is exactly what I'm telling you. And even the date. Third Monday in June. Basically, everybody knows. So where would the tent be? Maybe you're being interested about it. Maybe you're saying, well, you know, I know exactly where Fayette and Church intersect. Well, I'm not saying that's for sure where we're going to be. We may be at the Holiday Shopping Center instead. Or we may be in the shopping center just towards Walmart from this location here on Church Street. We're still looking at that. But one of the things you'll know is everything will be the same. So look at this is basically what's going to happen this year already that we know. There are 9 different states, people in 9 different states that have already RSVP'd to this tent. I don't know how many that number is. I'm saying you can say if it was just one person from each one of those states, it would be 9 people. But these are multiple people in a family from multiple states, and some of these 9 states that we're talking about will have different people from different parts of the state that are coming in. Different people from Tennessee, not from the same area, not from the same town, coming into the tent. Have people from Arizona coming to the tent. People from Arkansas, different locations in Arkansas, coming to the tent. And so people from Florida, people from South Carolina, North Carolina, just on and on. I can't even remember all the different places that people are coming from and why. They have been watching us do this all this time. Their church has been shut down in many cases, and they haven't been having something normal. Wouldn't it be nice? Wouldn't it be nice to be able to go somewhere and do something that did not change all of this time? This is the place. The last 2 years, we were on the North Carolina and Danville line on Highway 86. 2 years during the pandemic, we had our tent meeting in 2020, third Monday in June. We had it in North Carolina, right on the line, and we parked in Danville. If you came out, it was exactly like it was in 2019. I'm saying it was the same location. It was the same kind of people. I believe we had 8 states represented. A host of individuals came from out of town to help us in proclaiming the gospel. We knocked doors during the middle of the pandemic, went house to house, didn't have any trouble at all. Now, I want to ask you just to consider this. Now, you might be just sitting here thinking, and you know, I know a lot of people that would have already given up at this point. Do we look like we're going to give up? The only thing that's going to happen to me is I'm going to play out. I'm not giving up. And I know as you're sitting here watching this, you're like, it's possible, it is very likely that someone tonight that's watching this is actually saying, you know what? I've been watching these people for all these years, and they just continue to put this information out, and the information just does not change. They continue to present very bold and fresh ideas and challenge all these other individuals that are changing right before us. What's the name of your church now? Well, I know that Robert Taylor's church was an independent fundamental Baptist church. Now it's called the Highway 107 Church of Christ. Well, you know, that's not a change that should cause any alarm. He's basically moving into the biblical arena for the first time in that church's existence. Look at this, Romans chapter 16, verse 16. You know what, Brother Taylor and brethren at 107, Highway 107 Church of Christ, the churches of Christ salute you. God bless y'all for making your change in the right direction. What's it mean, in the right direction? Into the Bible direction. And so as you're watching that, what is your church doing? Well, I know that some of the folk that Robert Taylor involved himself with, they've changed their name just to things like Emmaus. That's it, Emmaus. What is Emmaus? And you just continue to see these different ones, like Brian Edwards over here, debated him in 2005. How many name changes have they had since 2005? At least 3, and I don't even know if they're done yet. So you see how that's going? Who's coming to the tent 2021? Who's coming to this tent? As I said, RSVP already, 9 states across America. Well, I can tell you this. You're going to be surprised this year, because this year we actually are going to be entertaining the idea of unification. Now, you've been listening to me talking about how denominational sectarian people act and behave. And then I put this slide up that says that you can expect individuals who believe things that the disciples of Christ believe at this tent. So now listen, y'all, I don't want you to be alarmed, but I do want you to be at least create a curiosity, because this is 2021 after all. You know, I can remember when people used to say, this is the 20th century, you know, and liberation of women and things of that nature. Used to have a cigarette commercial called Virginia Slims, and it was basically, it was a woman generally, and she was smoking a cigarette this long. And the caption would say, "You've come a long way, baby." And people would shake their head and say, well, after all, it is the 20th century. Hey, after all, it is 2021. And things have changed. Isn't it time for some of these folks to actually consider unifying? Consider coming to a meeting where unity is going to be the topic? We're going to end up entertaining individuals that believe what the disciples of Christ believed. We're going to be entertaining individuals actually having lessons by people who believe in the Presbyterian form of government. Now, you might be watching this tonight and you may be just saying, Johnny, how did y'all pull this off? We're just coming out of the back end, at least some people say, of a major worldwide pandemic, and everybody's been hunched up in their basements, and the Church of Christ is actually doing their 22nd or 23rd year of tent meetings, and we've done 2 a year for I don't know how long. So as far as counting up how many tent meetings we actually have, I have totally lost count. But I can tell you this, we are actually in the process of helping individuals to realize, look, we can have unity. Can you imagine if it's Tuesday night, June the 22nd, and you have the possibility of actually coming out and hearing someone speak at a tent that we put up, and they're actually promoting the Presbyterian form of government? Is that not going to be a major event and a curiosity that you would not want to actually miss? What if the third night you had an individual that was preaching that believed in the tenets of the Church of God? What about the family of God? What about Christ Church? Can you imagine, do you know Christ Church? I'm saying, do you know who's actually the preacher for Christ Church? And the body of Christ, individuals who identify with the body of Christ on what night are we talking about? 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6. So that'd be the 27th. The Assembly of God on the 28th. the Church of Christ on the 29th, people who follow the Apostles' doctrine on the 30th, Catholic. Are you seeing this? All of this is going on, and you're basically saying you're disinterested. You're on What's the Bible Say?
How you doing, Johnny?
I'm doing good.
Well, good. You might not understand my voice too much, but I've got a little bit of speech therapy in my mouth. I called you last week.
Yes, I know who you are. What's going on?
Okay, let you know I was a member of the Jesus Only movement for 30 years. And about 32 years ago, I was baptized in the Church of Christ. My father was under S.C. Johnson for years, and when Johnson died, he kept that doctrine in the house, everything. My name is Adrian Cutler, that you know now. It's hard for me speaking right now because it's hard to get my breath together, you know.
Well, let me stop you.
I was a member of the Apostolic Church in a false.
Let me stop you a minute.
Okay.
All right. Now, what I want to do is I want to make sure everybody did understand. We understood most of what you said, but when you first started, you said you were a member of the Jesus Only. Is that correct?
Yeah. Yes, sir.
All right. Let's make this clear for our listeners. What is that? Is that apostolic?
Yes, it is the Apostolic Church.
Who's the most well-known apostolic right now that you would say possibly on the Eastern Seaboard, maybe even all the way over to Chicago and down through the southern states? Who's the most popular apostolic preacher that you know?
Geno Jennings.
Geno Jennings.
He act like he's not apostolic, but he's apostolic.
He's apostolic. All right. So did you say that your father knew S.C. Johnson?
Yes, he was a member of the S.C. Johnson Church
In Philadelphia.
It started on Montgomery Avenue. Then he went on 22nd and Bangwich and built a church building in 22nd and Bangwich.
And your name again?
Adrian Cutler.
Okay. Now, y'all hearing this? Particularly Martinsville and Henry County. Adrian, I am telling you, Adrian, you are a breath of fresh air for me right now in the Martinsville, Henry County, and the Danville area. You would not believe how many apostolic folk that there are in this area. And Geno Jennings has tried so hard. He's been here at least 4 times, and we challenged him face to face every time. And he has not, as far as I know, he has not set up one of his, I call them mosques because he numbers them just like the Muslims do.
Yes, he do.
And so your family was associated with the original S.C. Johnson group, and that's where Geno Jennings came out of. When S.C. Johnson died, they had a big fight. Do you know about the fight?
Yes, I do. I know about the fight when his son really took over. They not saying they act like that's not his son, but his son is Bishop Ashby-Dow Shelton. That's Bishop Johnson's son, and he took over the congregation. And this man, he was adulterous, he was a drunkard, and everything. This man, he did a lot of things wrong. Geno, he was too young for S.C. Johnson. He's too young for that. But he got his format out of Johnson playbook. He tried to speak like S.C. Johnson. That's why he got a lot of members, because he tried to speak like S.C. Johnson, like he's being bold.
Okay,
he's a coward.
Can I stop you a minute?
Yes, sir.
Did S.C. Johnson say this? Am I right?
Yes, he did. He said that all the time. Another thing, my uncle, before he died, he was a member of the Geno Jennings Church. And one day, see, I used to drive a truck for 30 years. And I went by and see my uncle. He said to me, you know, you got to speak in tongues to be saved. And the Bible says that, but Geno said, he said, I believe Geno. And I said, I believe the Bible. I said, Uncle Albert, you're never going to speak in tongues. And before he died, I asked him, you ever spoke in tongues? He said, no. And Geno never went to his funeral. Never went to his funeral.
Now that's your Uncle Albert.
Uncle Albert, yeah, but
Okay,
in Paulsville, New Jersey. Geno never went to his funeral.
All right, now let me ask you this. Let me ask you this, Adrian. I've been watching Geno Jennings a long time, and I have noticed that lately, maybe in the last 4 or 5 years, I could be wrong, it could have been longer, but I've noticed it lately that it seems that Geno Jennings is actually adding tongues into his preaching more than he used to. I don't remember Geno Jennings acting up and all the tongue speaking and stuff, the pretended tongue speaking. Do you have knowledge of any changes that are taking place?
Well, one time Gino was talking to one of his members, and member got him to start speaking in tongues. I said, that's out of hand. I remember Gino was dancing. I dancing and speaking in tongues out of hand. And he said, if you don't speak in tongues, you don't have the Holy Ghost. That's what he's saying. And I said, that's ridiculous. This man is ridiculous on his false teaching.
Okay. Adrian, I do appreciate you calling, and I'm going to get you to call again so that our audience will get used to hearing you. Tell me what happened. You did not have a stroke, did you?
No, I have a disease called Machado-Joseph disease.
Oh.
It's in the Parkinson family.
Okay.
I'm disabled now. I drove truck for 30 years.
Okay.
And I retired. And my doctor stopped me from working after he seen that I was getting wobble and walking. Now I'm in a wheelchair right now.
Okay. All right, Adrian, we're going to basically start mentioning your name to our subscribers on YouTube and having them all be praying for you and your family. I really do appreciate your call, and I appreciate the fact that you have found us on YouTube and that you have all this information about Geno Jennings. And we're going to talk again sometime. I actually have some of the court litigation papers and things of that nature having to do with the big fight that they had over S.C. Johnson's church. And when Geno Jennings and the son, what did you say the son's name? S.C. Johnson's son?
Johnson's son, Esmond Shelton. He's dead now, but it was Bishop Goodwin, Bishop Hunter, Bishop Selby, who else? Bishop Tooks. All these guys are fighting over that building when S.C. Johnson died.
Okay, now I'm gonna make a shout out right now, Adrian. One of our most well-known pastors in Martinsville that's in the Apostolic is J.C. Richardson. He and I actually had a scheduled debate where we signed propositions, and he got on and never let me speak. You know, I would have had to literally interrupt him and act up on television. I wasn't willing to do that. I actually bought extra airtime just in case he did that. And so I'm wanting to make a shout out to the community to tell J.C. Richardson that someone who's actually closely connected in the past with S.C. Johnson's family knew S.C. Johnson to actually realize, J.C. Richardson, we are basically going to out you and Geno Jennings and Early Dillard and other individuals that are in the apostolic movement. And on one of our nights, we're going to be entertaining individuals who follow the apostles' doctrine. And I'll talk to you more later, Adrian. God bless you.
I appreciate that. Remember, there's some guys they will not debate you with a moderator. They will take control of the whole debate. Hey,
Adrian, I don't need a moderator. I have these guys come on face to face with me, and I can be just as whatever they do. We're able to handle that kind of stuff. I just would not go to, the only thing I will not do is go to Geno Jennings, his building. He has invited me to come to his building, pay my trip, airfare, put me in a hotel, the whole bit, but I'm not going to go up in the building where it's his home turf. I've already challenged him.
Don't do that.
Yeah.
But Geno, he will take control of the debate. If you remember, I sent you the debate with Reggie Young. Brother Reggie Young, and we know it was out of hand because Geno took the whole control of the whole debate. And that guy Smith, Geno took control of the whole debate. And Geno, he don't want a moderator, nothing. He wants to control everything. It's like S.C. Johnson. He took control of all the debates when he debate Brother Rudd, Brother Reverend, and Brother Albert back in the day.
Well, I'll tell you what.
The whole thing.
I'll tell you what. Right now, Adrian, I've got a friend that's in Memphis, and if he could hear you say Don Rudd right now, he would just be he would be beside himself because he knew Don Rudd personally. And also another friend of mine that's in Denver, Colorado Springs, he also would go out and hear Brother Rudd preach in Nashville, and they all heard about that debate, and it was really a fiasco. All right, I got to let you go. It's right close to the hour. Thanks for calling.
Take care now.
All right, thanks for calling.
All right.
All right. You know, folks, it just doesn't get much better than that. Charles, I forget how I've been off of your phone so long. How do you
Take it off?
No, he hung up. Okay. All right, folks. Now you heard that. This guy's father knew S.C. Johnson, which is the founder of Geno Jennings' church, and he basically knows of Geno Jennings personally. He knows he's a coward. He won't come on and have a real discussion with somebody who knows the Bible. I think you all in this area know that. And so that call, I had no idea that Adrian was going to call. I didn't know he was watching. And he actually called up just as I was saying that on one of the nights we're going to actually entertain someone who is a follower of the apostles' doctrine. Now, let me just ask you, can you afford to miss a night of this, all of this, any of this? I mean, pick your night. I can possibly, if Caleb doesn't mind, I can leave this as our schedule. This would be the 21st, Disciples of Christ, 22nd, Presbyterian. You know what? I actually forgot to put up. We'll be entertaining someone that actually believes in the Episcopalian government, form of government. So let me just take my slide down and let me see if I can add that right here. Episcopal. I'm going to put the Greek term instead. Where am I getting that zero? All right. Episkopos believes in the Episcopal form of government. Now, how about that? Can you ever remember having an opportunity to have so many different options in front of you? What do you think about that last one? Catholic. Now, folks, what I'm saying is this really is exactly the way it was in the Bible. When you're talking about individuals being willing to entertain this kind of thing, look at this. Acts 17:17. This is Paul's behavior. Therefore disputed he in the synagogue with the Jews and with the devout persons, and in the market daily with them that met with him. This is the kind of thing that we're willing to do. People that believe in the Episcopal form of government, you know, I would wonder if Nick Hull would have been willing to come out and see this kind of event if he were still in town. Now, someone might say, Nick Hull, where is he? Well, he's about 30 minutes from the people in Maryland that came last weekend and spent the weekend with Caleb. It's easy for us to reach him. Now, listen, folks, does it get any better than this? I mean, we're lining up individuals that believe in the Presbyterian government, individuals for you to come out and hear this kind of thing presented and even be able to understand it. Disciples of Christ, are the Fayette Street folk going to come out? Well, I didn't tell you which one it was going to be. I just said people who actually believe what the disciples of Christ believe. And Episcopal form of government, Presbyterian form of government, and follow the apostles' doctrine. You definitely don't want to miss this. And so I hope that you'll take the opportunity to come out and be with us. And one of the things that we want to make sure that you're able to do is able to get in touch with us. And that's very vital. Tonight, as we go off, I'm going to give you those details. If you want to get in touch with me, make sure that you remember Johnny Robertson for YouTube. You can find our YouTube channel. You might want to tell somebody about this broadcast tonight. joeblue81@gmail.com is my email address, and 276-806-2150 is my cell phone number. What you need to do is set your calendar for June 21st and make sure you always ask for it. What's the Bible say? God bless you. Good night.